The stars bent back into place as the ISS Dauntless emerged from warp. For a long breath, the crew stared out at the dark curve of Drell Prime below, a barren, red-streaked mining world at the edge of civilization. Its orbital station should have been alive with council patrols, civilian traffic, the background hum of industry. Instead, the void was empty. Too empty. Captain Elara Vance didn't move from her command chair. Her posture was upright but deceptively relaxed, one hand resting on the armrest as if she were simply watching another jump finish. Yet her eyes traced every angle of the viewscreen with the precision of a predator scenting the air. "Scans?" she asked, her voice calm, level. "Station reads occupied," reported Lieutenant Oren, the ship's sensor officer. His pale hands hovered over his console, frowning at the display. "Power signature looks low. No council patrols. Just silence." That silence told its own story. Commander Hale, her second in command, shifted uneasily. "It's a trap." "Has to be." Elara didn't glance at him. "Everything out here is a trap, Commander. The trick is knowing who's holding it shut." Before Hale could reply, the quiet shattered. Warp wakes flared across the screen. Shadows slipped free of distortion like predators materializing from fog. 12 Dravari Marauder vessels, engines glowing a deep carnivorous red. They spread into a crescent formation, boxing the Dauntless against the planet's curve. On the bridge, no one spoke. No alarms blared. No sudden rush of shields or weapons. The crew of the Dauntless froze like prey animals sensing the strike. Elara leaned back in her chair, expression unchanged. "Then, open a channel." Her voice cut through the tension, and the officers obeyed as if wrenched back to life. The main screen flickered, filling with the scaled, angular face of Warlord Threx Khazor. His reptilian eyes gleamed yellow, his wide mouth curled into something between a grin and a snarl. "So," he hissed, his voice a dry scrape of stone on stone, "the Council sends its pets. I thought they'd learn not to waste their weaklings out here." Murmurs stirred among the bridge crew. Elara's gaze never wavered. "You've mistaken us," she said evenly. "We're not pets. We're neighbors. And we came to talk." Threx threw back his head and barked a laugh. "Talk? Humans always talk. That's how I know you fear us. Words to hide your trembling hands." Hale's jaw tightened, but Elara raised one finger subtly, stilling him. "Or," she said, her voice measured, "it's how we decide who's worth our anger." For a moment, Threx's grin faltered. Then it returned sharper. "Anger? Your kind postures well. I've heard the stories. The galaxy whispers about your blood wars, your extinction battles. But to me, you look like prey who learn to mimic predators. And mimicry only fools the weak." Elara's eyes flicked once toward the tactical officer. "Status of weapons?" "Shields at full, weapons primed but cold," the officer said quietly. She nodded, turning her gaze back to the screen. "Then you'll forgive us if we wait to see if you're strong enough to be fooled." The silence after that line stretched like a wire pulled too tight. The bridge crew held their breath, waiting for a crackle of weapons fire. Instead, Threx leaned closer, pupils narrowing to slits. "You will power down your weapons and come aboard the station," he growled. "If humans want peace, they will beg for it where I sit. If not..." His clawed hand flicked across a console, and behind him a holofeed bloomed. The station corridors appeared, filled with colonists corralled by Dravari warriors. One of the aliens shoved a miner to the floor, boot pressing on his chest. The threat was unmistakable. Hale half rose from his chair. "Captain, we can't." "Sit," Elara said quietly. Her tone was calm, but it carried steel. He obeyed instantly. Turning back to the warlord, she folded her hands. "We'll come aboard. But understand something, warlord. Negotiation is not surrender." His grin widened, sharp teeth catching the light. "Oh, I'm counting on that." The feed cut. The screen returned to the image of Marauder ships looming like a cage of knives. For several moments, the only sound was the hum of the bridge. Then Hale exhaled sharply. You can't seriously intend to walk into that. Of course I do, Elara said. If he wanted us dead, we'd already be vapor. He wants a show. So we give him one. Lieutenant Oren turned in his chair. Captain, with respect, walking into his claws feels like suicide. Elara's expression softened, just barely. Patience, Oren. That's all it is. Patience until the moment the claws close too tight. That's when you bite. The landing party prepared in silence. Marines checked their armor seals, engineers disguised equipment as innocuous gear, officers murmured quiet oaths. Everyone knew what waited on the other side of the docking bay, yet no one spoke of retreat. When the dauntless airlocks cycled open, heat and noise struck like a wave. The station smelled of iron and oil, and the air vibrated with the sound of Dravari boots. Warriors lined the walls, armored in black plates, eyes glinting as they sized up the humans. Threx Khazor waited in the center of the chamber, towering over his prey, his mouth already twisting into mockery. Behold, he announced to his gathered warriors, spreading his arms. The council's lapdogs, come meekly on command. Some of the Dravari barked laughter. Others hissed. The colonists watching from the shadows looked on with wide, silent eyes. Elara walked forward with slow, deliberate steps. Her face betrayed nothing. No smile, no frown, no flicker of fear. She stopped just short of Threx, tilting her head slightly upward to meet his gaze. You wanted a show, she said. Here we are. Threx circled her like a beast appraising meat. Your restraint intrigues me, human. So much humiliation, and yet you don't bare your teeth. Why? She didn't turn to follow him, only spoke clearly, her voice carrying across the chamber. Because we're patient. Patient? He laughed again, rough and mocking. Patience is for prey hiding in the tall grass. Patience is waiting for the predator to strike. Finally, Elara looked at him, and for the first time, her eyes sharpened like blades. You mistake us, warlord. We are the predator in the grass. And the only thing we wait for is the moment you forget that. The chamber fell into silence. Even the colonists seemed to stop breathing. Threx narrowed his eyes, searching her face for a crack, a flinch, a weakness. He found none. Elara's expression didn't change. Her voice remained calm. But every human in the room heard the warning underneath, and every alien felt a flicker of unease they couldn't name. She turned slightly, giving a nod to her officers. Let's begin the negotiation. And with that, the patience of predators stretched tighter still, a coil waiting to spring. The negotiation chamber was a hollowed cargo bay repurposed into a throne room of iron and intimidation. Chains clattered from overhead beams, trophies of conquered species nailed to the walls. Human eyes picked them out instantly, helmets split open, weapons bent into scrap, banners draped as if they were spoils of a hunt. Warlord Threx Khazor sat on a raised platform of steel, claws drumming idly against the arm of his chair. Around him, marauder warriors stood like statues, their jagged armor gleaming under the harsh floodlights. Between the humans and their host bristled a crowd of colonists, forced to kneel as living shields. Captain Elara Vance walked to the center of the chamber with her officers at her side. Her posture didn't falter. Her face showed nothing but cool neutrality. Yet her crew could read the tension under her skin, the stillness of a hunter not yet springing. Speak, Threx growled. Tell me why your species thinks it belongs here. Why the council parades you as if you were equals instead of scavengers that stumbled into the stars. Elara didn't look at the trophies, didn't let her gaze waver toward the colonists. She met Threx's eyes. Because we've survived everything that tried to kill us. Not by strength alone. Not by technology. By choice. By refusing to kneel. Threx barked a laugh, his teeth flashing. Bold words. But words are wind. Show me something more. Do you bleed like prey, or roar like predators? One of the marauders shoved a colonist forward, forcing him to crawl on his hands. The man's face was bruised, his clothes torn. A warrior pressed a blade to his back. Elara's officers tensed. Commander Hale's hand twitched toward his concealed weapon. She flicked her fingers once, and he stilled. You're testing patience, Elara said evenly. Patience? Threx rose, towering over her. You think restraint makes you strong. It makes you weak. A predator that doesn't strike is nothing but a starving beast pretending at power. He gestured, and the marauder warrior drove the colonist to the ground. The man cried out as claws pressed into his shoulder. Stop this, Elara commanded. Her voice was calm, but steel lay beneath every syllable. Threx tilted his head, studying her. His grin spread wide. Not until I see the truth. They say humans hide monsters beneath their skins. I want to meet it. The warrior raised his blade. Captain. Hale's voice was tight with alarm. Hold, Elara said. The blade fell. A scream tore through the chamber. The colonists writhed, blood streaking the floor. A hush followed. The marauders leaned forward, eager for the human outburst they craved. But Elara didn't explode. She didn't roar, didn't bare her teeth. Instead, her voice came low, steady, measured like a knife sliding free of its sheath. No, she said, her gaze locked on Threx. I'm actually getting annoyed. The words were quiet, but they rippled outward like shockwaves. Hale's eyes widened. Every officer on her team straightened. They knew that tone. They'd trained for that phrase. The marauders didn't understand yet. But the colonists did. Even bleeding, the man on the floor managed a strained whisper. Run! Elara didn't move suddenly. She simply lifted one hand, subtle, precise. It was enough. Her crew activated their hidden devices in synchrony. A burst of static disrupted the chamber's lights. Shadows danced, plunging the room into jagged half-darkness. The marauders snarled, raising weapons. Hale stepped forward, his voice low but sharp. Dauntless team, execute! What followed was not chaos. It was order. Ruthless, exacting order. Hidden weapons slid from sleeves. Concealed explosives planted earlier by engineers flickered alive. The humans moved with predator discipline, silent, coordinated, each strike calculated. A marauder lunged for Elara. She sidestepped, calm as water, and drove her pistol into the gap of his armor. One shot, clean, decisive. He collapsed at her feet. Target their overjoints, Elara said. Her voice wasn't raised, but it carried. Break their balance. They rely on brute force. Make it useless. Her officers obeyed without hesitation. Marines swept through the chamber, striking where marauder armor was weakest, crippling limbs, dropping giants to the floor before they realized what had happened. The colonists scrambled aside, stunned by the reversal. Moments ago, the marauders had seemed unassailable. Now they were prey. Threx roared, the sound shaking metal walls. You dare! Elara cut across him, her tone cutting sharper than his fury. I warned you. You wanted to see the monster. Congratulations. A marauder charged her with a jagged blade. She caught his wrist, twisted, and with frightening precision, drove his own weapon through his throat. She didn't blink. She didn't gloat. She simply stepped over his body as if it were already forgotten. Threx's arrogance faltered. He barked orders to his warriors, but the tide was turning too fast. Panic edged into their movements. They'd expected human pleading, begging, desperation. What they found instead was surgical, terrifying efficiency. Elara advanced slowly toward Threx's throne. Her boots echoed against blood-slicked metal. Behind her, the chamber filled with the sound of marauders dying fast, clean deaths. You mistook patience for fear, she said. Her words were quiet but carried across the carnage. You thought restraint meant weakness. It meant mercy. Mercy you squandered. Threx swung his massive blade down, trying to cleave her where she stood. She stepped aside, caught the edge with her side embraced, and let the strike bury itself in steel. Then she fired into the joint of his shoulder. His roar shook the chamber, but his grip faltered. Her gaze never wavered. You've had your show. Now it's ours. The chamber lights flickered fully out. In the dark, the marauders finally understood why every species whispered about human annoyance. They weren't fighters. They were predators who had been biding time, and now the hunt had begun. Darkness swallowed the chamber. The only light came from the occasional muzzle flash, the pale glow of emergency strips along the walls, and the sparks of broken equipment. In that fractured illumination, the marauders discovered what it meant to be prey. Humans moved like phantoms, silent, coordinated, striking from angles the Dravari couldn't track. Every flash revealed another marauder collapsing, armor split, weapons wrenched from claws. Screams echoed, then cut short with surgical finality. Captain Elara Vance advanced through the chaos without hurry. Her steps were steady, her voice measured, cutting through the noise with chilling clarity. "Keep pressure left," she ordered. "Hale, clear the flank. Orin, lights, blind them, not us." Obedience was instant. A strobe of concentrated beams erupted, disorienting Dravari eyes adapted to low light. Warriors stumbled, roaring in frustration as shadows turned against them. Threx Khazor bellowed from his throne, forcing his way through his own soldiers. His blade carved through the dark, each swing sending sparks against steel. "Cowards! Face me openly!" Elara turned her head slightly, eyes cold in the strobing light. "You wanted monsters, warlord. Monsters don't duel. They hunt." Her pistol cracked once. A shot took the joint of his knee. He staggered, snarling, lashing out at the nearest human only to find none close enough. Around them, the fight ended quickly. The last marauder fell with a strangled hiss, armor dented inward by precision strikes. The chamber, moments ago filled with the swagger of conquerors, now reeked of blood and failure. Silence fell, broken only by the rasp of Threx's breath. He was on one knee, his weapon half raised, the weight of inevitability pressing down. Elara walked toward him. The colonists watched in stunned awe as the human captain stepped over bodies without slowing, her gaze fixed on the warlord who had mocked her patience. She stopped a meter away. The strobing light steadied, casting her in pale, unwavering glow. Her pistol aimed directly at his throat. Threx lifted his head, defiance warring with the tremor in his voice. "You think this victory changes anything? More will come. My fleets stretch beyond this system. You've only earned extinction sooner." Elara tilted her head slightly. Her voice carried no anger, only that lethal calm the galaxy whispered about. "Your fleets won't matter. They'll hear this story. They'll hear what happens when a human captain says she's annoyed. And they'll wonder if it's worth testing again." He bared his teeth. "You won't kill me. That would make you the butcher they say you are." Her pistol didn't waver. She studied him for a long breath, and the silence itself became suffocating. Then, finally, she lowered the weapon, not in mercy, but in calculation. "No," she said. "Killing you would end this here. Letting you crawl away ensures the fear spreads farther than I ever could." The colonists whispered, realization dawning. This wasn't forgiveness. This was strategy. Elara turned slightly, her gaze cutting across her team. "Secure the colonists. Sweep the station. Leave him." Hale hesitated. "Captain, letting him live is a risk. Not letting him live wastes the lesson," Elara replied. She walked past the broken warlord, her presence forcing him down more effectively than any strike could. As she passed, she leaned just close enough for her words to be heard only by him. "Run. Tell them what happens when humans stop being patient." Threx froze. For the first time, true fear flickered in his reptilian eyes. Her team moved swiftly. Marines freed the colonists, covering them as they hurried from the chamber. Orin rerouted station controls, locking down marauder ships in dock. The station, once a nest of intimidation, shifted under human control with frightening efficiency. Civilians stared at their rescuers as if uncertain whether to cheer or flee. One miner finally spoke, voice trembling. You barely raised your voices." And then he trailed off, unable to finish. Elara met his gaze. "We gave them every chance. They chose this end. By the time the Dauntless disengaged from the station, the Marauder fleet had fractured. Without clear orders, their ships broke formation, some fleeing, others scattering into the void. None attempted to stand their ground. On the bridge, Hale studied the tactical readout. "They're running, Captain?" "All of them." "Of course they are," Elara said quietly. She lowered herself into the command chair, posture once again relaxed, as though nothing had happened. "They've learned the only lesson that matters." Hale glanced at her. "And what lesson is that?" She let the question hang for a moment, her gaze lingering on the shrinking dots of fleeing ships. Then, "That patience is a choice. Annoyance is a decision. And when humans make that decision, no one walks away unchanged." The words hung in the air like a verdict. Orin exhaled softly. "The colony will talk about this for decades." Elara's eyes narrowed slightly. "Good. Let them. Let every word reach the fringe and beyond. The Council will wring their hands, but out here, stories keep us alive more than treaties do." The crew fell into silence, each one processing what had just unfolded. Around them, the galaxy was already shifting, the tale of Drell Prime spreading like fire, whispered in bars, traded in hushed tones along trade routes, exaggerated in every telling until it grew larger than life. And at the center of that story would always be the same moment. A human captain, calm as stone, saying only, "Now I'm actually getting annoyed." By the time the Dauntless entered warp, the legend had already begun.